The legacy of the Fairly OddParents is something that in more recent years continues to get more and more interesting. Obviously, as the main Fairly OddParents show went on, it was clear that things weren't received as well as they once were, with the addition of character after character, to the point that the original run of the Fairly OddParents came to an end in 2017. Luckily today, we have a pretty solid reboot/sequel show to the Fairly OddParents called A New Wish, that I think has pleasantly surprised most people who have given it a watch. I recently did a video talking about it. But there was this one weird thing that happened a couple of years ago, and that was when they tried to reboot the Fairly OddParents for the first time, and it would now be a live-action sitcom that included 2D animated characters that interact with the humans, and well, things weren't great. Nowadays, Nickelodeon likes to treat this attempt of a reboot as something that didn't really happen, and oh, look over there, shiny new reboot. Don't look for or watch the other one. Today, however, we are going to take a look at the live action one, see what went wrong with it, and why does it feel like the network is really trying to make sure that as few people know about it going forward. So what exactly was this show? Well, the Fairly OddParents' Fairly Otter is a one-season-long live-action take on the world of the Fairly OddParents. On March 31st, 2022, the entire series was released all at once on streaming through Paramount+, done so as a way to gain more interest and gather more eyes on their streaming service. There were 13 episodes, and it would introduce us to who the new live-action characters are through all of the familiar 2D characters that are a part of this magical world. We really first need to jump in and talk about this first episode and how it's introed in, because from the first frame you can see that the quality of the animation is severely much worse than what the regular Fairly OddParents show offered. I mean, I'd maybe let this slide if it was just for the sake of the opening, but as you'll soon see, it's the whole show. Anytime there is anything animated, it looks like this, if not worse over time. And seriously, no direct blame is aimed at the people who had to animate it. It just feels that they were rushed into making it work, and the show took what looks like a rough draft and made it the final result. Like, imagine going from this right into a recap of everything from Timmy's past adventures, where we get a montage of clips from the original show. You can see just how bad it looks in comparison to bits of animation 20 years older than it. It's kind of nuts. But none of that matters as we transition into live action, where Timmy here is done with high school and is ready for college. So aside from going into detail about how all of this breaks canon from the show, looking for any logic as to why he still has Cosmo and Wanda in general, or where Poof is, or anything else that there would even be to point out, we just get to see this dude here cosplay as Timmy by wearing all pink and coming up with the reason as to why he would want to go to college without his fairy godparents. He talks about this permission scroll from Jorgen that lets him break the rules a bit, and I ain't just talking about the video game. Look, I will always make that joke any opportunity I can. Timmy's whole plan here is to give Cosmo and Wanda away, as if he were Andy in Toy Story and just handing them off to his cousin Viv, and he thinks that she would really need them. Now, before we even get to that big moment, we get to meet Viv and understand a bit about the setup of the show, and whew, oh boy.
Stick around! You're watching Fairly Otter!
We end up meeting Viv as she is nervous about moving into her new home, as her father is having them live with his new wife and her son, and on top of that, she's never met them before. So things are going great here. I can suspend my disbelief pretty well for the most part, but what is this logic? Like, this is just a bad parent in general, and everything is explained to you so fast and so loose that what it's really telling me is that none of this matters and we just kinda had to make it work. Either way, I don't wanna just be nitpicking everything here, because that's not the point. So moving on, this whole moment here of meeting the other half of this new family turns into a surprise party, something that Viv really doesn't want, but since it was put together by her new little stepbrother Roy, she just tries to go along with it. He's also way too eager and excited about having a stepsister, and their parents here are just ballroom dancing like things are normal. I get that there is a level of cartoonish qualities that the series here is clearly going for, but the problem that this runs into is the show trying to find this balance that clearly isn't possible. You either play into the fact that things are live action now and build the world around that, or you go fully into the cartoony nature of things and embrace it in every way. Trying to juggle bits of both only makes for an inconsistent show that keeps asking too much of the viewer to follow along with. Also, just in context to what I'm saying, that doesn't mean you can't have really good characters if you decide to fully go for the cartoony side of things. You can have deep emotional moments, extremely funny moments, more more introspective moments, and still develop a cartoonish feeling to the world and the rules of the world within it. I'm not saying it's easy, I'm just saying it's possible. Jumping ahead, all you need to really know is that Viv is an introvert, she has a hard time speaking up for herself and expressing herself, and Roy is more of a socialite. He's outgoing, and most importantly, he's kind of always wanted a sibling. So him being clingy to Viv and Viv trying to learn to work with that and be out of her comfort zone presents a whole slew of issues. This will also play into the situations they both get into thanks to their distinct personalities. Once Timmy comes into the picture here, he magically poofs into her room and wastes no time trying to introduce Cosmo and Wanda to Viv, all while he is unaware that Roy is seeing this happen until he bursts in. So now the situation becomes a twofer kinda, with Viv and Roy both becoming the god kids to Cosmo and Wanda. So even though I'm pretty sure most people, at least from what I know, heavily disliked having Timmy sharing his godparents with Chloe in the final season of the Fairly OddParents. So then why in the world would you reboot the series and set it up as two kids sharing the fairies again? It just doesn't make sense to me. I am really struggling to see who this show was even made for, because you kind of have to know a little bit about the original show, and in saying that, I'm still confused as to what's happening the entire time, and coming into it without that knowledge will leave you the same. I don't know who they're targeting here. Anyways, Timmy gets in trouble with Jorgen because he was only supposed to show Viv the fairies, and that's it. But for whatever reason, Jorgen just kind of goes along with it, telling them that they will share wishes back and forth, and at this point, all the show has done so far is try to paint Roy as being super cool, and everyone, including Jorgen, likes him, and gives him all the praise while everyone else, including Jorgen once again, just kind of tears down Viv, making her out to be this average kid who no one understands. Oh wait, I thought that was the whole point of the whole IP in general. My bad. Once this is all said and done, Timmy just up and leaves for college. There was no true emotional moment between him and his fairies. Those emotions kind of get wished away, and just like that, Cosmo and Wanda are no longer his, and Viv and Roy, who by the way just kind of accept everything with little to no shock, have them as their fairy godparents. Viv becomes super melodramatic right away. Well, first wishing for a really cool room and sorry you'll never have what Drake and Josh had, but after that she immediately wants to wish herself away, thinking she doesn't fit in or belong here after spending like, I don't know, an hour here. And hey, me too, I don't blame you, I'm ready to peace out. I'm going to go to the world of a better show, and I'm bringing Cosmo and Wanda with me. Ned's Declassified School Survival Guide, a true classic. Okay, fine, I can't stay there forever, but there is just nothing else in the show here. There's no real structure to telling a story or helping teach a lesson or learning something about themselves, nothing. Any attempt at having plots becoming interesting or adding stakes to moments only ever equate to something way less exciting and leaving you wishing it could be even a fraction of a percent like the original series. When Timmy's wishes go awry, the adventure surrounding it is extremely fun. Here, when a wish goes awry, it's just for no reason, and it's silly and pointless. There really is nothing memorable about this show. Unless you count remembering how bad it truly was, then hey, I guess there's something. I really can't stress enough just how poorly the show treats the animation. Like, this whole fairy world jail sequence is pretty infamous as the moment where you can point out so many issues. It looks slapped together, nothing is really interacting with one another, and Crocker here, who is in 2D animated form, still looks, well, this forward-facing shot of him should tell you everything you need to know, like, holy moly. But if we move past that, let's talk about what the show does bring over from the original series. Like, okay, Crocker, for example. We get to see him in live action too, and it is the voice actor who plays him actually playing the character here, so hey, that's great, and there is some effort here in this performance to make it feel cartoony just like in the show. But in contrast to the other performances given, clearly Crocker here is still in cartoon land while everyone else isn't. So while I appreciate his performance, as it does indeed match the look of the show and what part of it wanted to go for with the cartoony stuff, but with everything else, it just completely doesn't fit here because of every other aspect that the show has. I don't even want to talk about the portrayal of Vicky. This doesn't feel like Vicky, and she's oddly in love with Crocker, and I hate this side detail for the character. It's really dumb, and it makes me personally uncomfortable. My therapist will hear about this. Viv and Roy's parents in the show, like I kind of mentioned about Viv's dad, are just awful, and look, I get that in the original show, Timmy's parents aren't going to be winning any awards either, but at least we get some really great moments with them and see more about who they are as characters. And they're also cartoons. Here, these might as well just be random adults who just dance any chance they get. They do nothing as parents that add value, and their slapstick or cartoony dance segments don't come close to what Timmy's parents would still offer. Therein lies one of the biggest issues with the show. The characters are all one note and solely built on one specific personality trait that becomes the same joke over and over and over again.
Stick around. You're watching Fairly Otter.
So what is there that can win me over? References to a better version of the IP? Oh look, Tad and Chad. Oh wow, the Crimson Chin. Yeah, stuff like that can be cool, but if that's all you have, then you truly have nothing. This is a masterclass in milking an IP without having a reason to come back to the tap. You just need some sort of program to help sell the streaming service, so aside from stuff like SpongeBob or the Rugrats to pull from, you took what you could from another long-running popular series that you have and made something without any care about what you're making. Just do it, make it fast, and throw all caution to the wind. Again, I really only blame the higher powers that be for why this ended up the way it did. It's just a shame to see how little they think of the audience, either banking on us just mindlessly consuming anything, or on the business side of things, banking on just throwing it out anyway. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I truly do believe that some people who were a part of this production wish they could have made something a bit more special. But the only wish I'd like to make right now is for some savings on gamer subs, and oh, would you look at that? I can, and you can too. So aside from the current Christmas sale going on where you can get a bunch of awesome bonuses and savings, you can head over to gamer subs by clicking the link in my description, and by using my code FRINGE, you can get 10% off any purchase you ever make for yourself. There's tons of great flavors, both new and old, and lots of great other things like their shaker cups, merch drops, and so much more. Use my code FRINGE every time you purchase anything from gamer subs and you'll save 10% off your order. It helps support the channel and you save some money. So use my code FRINGE at checkout. I truly appreciate you. Regardless of what you think about the later seasons of the Fairly OddParents, the series holds such a special place in so many people's hearts, including mine. So when it was announced years after the series had ended that a new Fairly OddParents series is coming, and on top of that it's live action, it definitely gave me both the feeling of, oh, please, no, and, well, I am curious to see what becomes of this. I never knew that what we would get would turn out to be as bad as it was. Like, maybe it could have been closer to the live-action TV movies for the Fairly OddParents that starred Drake Bell, as those are goofy and silly enough to have some enjoyment with them. But no, instead we would get something that isn't bad for just people not liking it. It was bad for the lackluster, bare-bone efforts to create something outside of just trying to keep the IP alive. And again, don't get me wrong, I'm not coming for the hard-working members of the crew who had to put this all together, as it will always be the fault of poor leadership, network meddling, and studio crunch. There is not one moment from the show that doesn't reflect how much of a rushed and carelessly put together production this was. I truly hate being harsh in any sense, because if something's bad, it's usually whatever, who cares, it's not for me, time to move on. But here, this is an example of something that goes beyond just being bad. It's downright offensive and a smack in the face to any fan of the Fairly OddParents, as well as anyone whose first experience with the property is this show. I also do recognize the targeted demographic for the show is definitely for younger audiences, and that's completely fair. I know that in no shape or form is this kids program aimed at me to hook me in as a viewer, but just because it is a kids show doesn't mean it can't also be a good show. Saying who cares, it's a kids show is just giving it a pass and equating it to something that isn't true. There are tons of shows that are aimed at kids that are simply just good shows, whether that includes adults getting something out of them or just meaning that there is something quality there for a kid to enjoy. So if you really want to talk about quality, the show just feels cheap. The set, the costumes, the magic, I said that last one in air quotes, all feel like the budget for the show was somewhat of an afterthought. I totally get working with what you got, but when you got nothing, it's hard to show that anything's working. I just can't find where the true effort was for making this into something special. You know, a reason to get Paramount Plus to see shows like this nearly a year before they would play them on TV. So don't open up a restaurant and advertise gourmet food only to then be reheating and replating fast food leftovers. There are so many live action sitcoms that Nickelodeon Nickelodeon has made, and there is a long track record of them being pretty good, and connecting well with different generations of audiences. So it's something I know Nickelodeon is capable of producing, but here, this concept of taking a cartoon and trying to make it work as this sitcom setup just really didn't. The jokes just boil down to someone getting in a slapstick situation or yelling an emphasis of whatever's going on, rinse, repeat, roll credits. Maybe there's some silly wishes in there as well. I can't even for 1 second believe that there would even be the possibility that a live studio audience is actually laughing at this. How would you like it if every cringy joke that I make I added a laugh track to? What's the deal with Fairly Otter? I don't see any otters. See? And now half of you have clicked off the video. Well, I guess then you wouldn't see this part because you would have clicked off the video. Why is there a laugh track? It wasn't even a joke. Everything about the show feels like it was mostly written in or made up on the spot. So when there are moments where they have to interact with cartoons, it feels like that can all just be added in or tweaked to fit better later on, which could really explain why the animation is legit so far off of what the original show was capable of 20 years ago. Things just happen or are just said for what feels like no reason most times, and there are episodes that just kind of end, and that's it. Okay, whatever, time for the next episode, I guess. Didn't need a full-on resolution or a bit more context, just cut to the credits and hit watch next episode. It treats you as mindless as the show presents itself. There is nothing added here that makes it special. There is nothing that helps expand the world of the Fairly OddParents. In fact, if anything, it really hurts the world of the Fairly OddParents. It was already on a downward spiral, and Fairly Otter seemed to come in only to help knock it down faster. Truly, it is a blessing if you are a fan of this IP that 2 years later, we'd get a new wish. A show that would actually do something with the property, that respects its origins, cares about the viewer's experience, offers some really good stories, and tries to make something that feels fresh, as Fairly Otter clearly had none of that. It's a sad experience to sit through, and the longer you watch, the more you feel so gutted that this is just Nickelodeon further tearing apart one of their biggest shows and adding a weird stain to its legacy. Yeah, sure, the original series does have its fair share of stuff going on in the later seasons that I do think can add to that as well, but nowhere even remotely close as to what Fairly Otter does to it. Sometimes though, there are fates worse than just being known as a bad show, and that would be full-on erasure and an attempt to act like it never happened.
Stick around. You're watching Fairly Otter!
Now it seems that nearly anything that Nickelodeon has been making for Paramount Plus is becoming their new tax write-offs, taking a big page out of Warner Brothers' playbook, and it makes all these shows that you've spent years promoting and telling your audience to go get this service to watch all obsolete, wasting even more of your money to promote it. It's all stupid. In addition to Fairly Otter just flat out being removed from Paramount Plus, the Rugrats 3D animated reboot and another new series they heavily promoted, Big Nate, both were simply just taken off the streaming platform. There's an even longer list of other Nickelodeon original shows that were all removed from the platform as well, but those were all TV first, streaming second shows, as the other three I mentioned were made for streaming first, with TV airings coming second. Still, it's all sad regardless. SpongeBob with its Camp Coral spin-off show on Paramount Plus better count its blessings that it hasn't been on the chopping block for whatever reason. The Patrick Star Show doesn't have to worry though, that's made for TV first and apparently doing pretty well. I think the last time I checked it out was an episode where the writers were poking fun back at online reviews and YouTube creators, and honestly, it was pretty funny and kind of valid. So you win this time, Patrick Star. But in general, by them doing this, it makes so many shows so much more inaccessible to those seeking it out. Streaming was supposed to be the hub where they would always be, but you know how it is, the cost of storage space is too much and the tax write-off is better for them. Ugh, it's just frustrating. Then you get all the jargon in the world from the network being all like, in connection with our continued review of our international content strategy, during the first quarter of 2024, we made a strategic decision to focus on content with mass global appeal. As part of this, we are rationalizing original content on Paramount Plus, especially internationally, and improving the efficiency of our linear network programming. As a result, we have reviewed our expansive global content portfolio and are removing select content from our platforms. I get that a business is a business, but just from how they speak about their programs they have deleted, referring to them as just content, that's pretty harsh. Like this video you're watching now, this is content. You know what I'm saying? There's a difference. Look, at the end of the day, good or bad, the Fairly OddParents Fairly Otter doesn't deserve to be deleted from the service that helped bring it to life. It doesn't deserve to be hidden away from you to ever seek out and watch one day. And sure, there are other ways out there to go and seek out these shows, but the point is that you shouldn't have to. It shouldn't just be turned into this write-off or shuffled off into certain international markets only, or whatever the case may be. All of these shows have turned into memories and only currently preserved preserved by external sources that aren't the network who made them. All of them are hidden by the network. You can't find them advertised or listed anywhere on Nickelodeon's website. They aren't airing on their TV channels. They are just simply gone, as if it were done by making a wish. And now, despite all of that, the Fairly OddParents' Fairly Otter would still go on to win Favorite Kids TV Show at the 2023 Kids' Choice Awards. So the lesson today, everyone, is that even if you work really hard and put all your passion and effort into what you create, there will always be a corporation who throws some grass from outside on a plate, calls it a premium salad, and sells it to you for 25 bucks. Or something like that, I just made that up on the spot. But the sentiment I am meaning, I hope can still be felt. But for now, tell me how you felt. If you did give the Fairly OddParents Fairly Otter a chance, what did you think of the show? Did you feel the same, or do you think the series had something going for it? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to hit the like button on this video and to subscribe for more videos coming soon, but until then, later.